Greetings. I thought it might be a good idea to do a video on why it is that myself and lots of other Aspie females especially get so badly misjudged, misinterpreted, and misunderstood. It was actually really funny because one of the things I was ridiculed about at Psych wrote, she believes that she suffered from the 3 M's, misjudged, misinterpreted, misdiagnosed, or something like that, because I have a blog called the 3 M's, and I guess I might have spewed that one out whilst under attack, right? So it's pretty funny because you know what? No shit, Sherlock, it's true. We get much more than just 3 M's, actually, like 100. What have I noticed looking at my videos and being able to observe my own behavior? I have a flat effect, and I don't make a whole lot of big, expressions in my face. Sometimes I would like to just stretch my face a little bit more. I do try to make expressions, but I have a bit of a flat effect, and I have since I was little, but it's a subtle flat effect. So I can seem a lot more like callous or arrogant or something of that nature, or, full of it or conceited or whatever, in a way that threatens people, so that when I'm sure of myself, because I'm actually just respecting myself, I have this flat effect and this sort of flat, smile in it, and people would misinterpret me as being like conceited or, being on a narc trip or, whatever. And then when I talk about things at certain levels of intensity, I'm just a bit rudimentary how I kind of, but again, these things are all subtleties. So people, I get framed, and because people attribute them to personality defects, character flaws, and it's not. It's my neurology. I watched a videotape of myself that I'm not sure if I'm going to put out ever. Sometimes I use the camera to process, make this like fantasy tape of what I would want to say, and I don't ever like put it on YouTube or anything. It helps me, and another Aspie female YouTuber had mentioned that kind of thing helps her too a lot. I was like, oh, so it is an Aspie thing. So when I saw myself there, I was hurting so bad, and it was just after, the trauma of last year, and I was very flat. It's because I wasn't able to process my emotions yet. So I was flat, but you could tell I was hurting, but I couldn't execute it, because if I did, I might just be nonverbal and end up like shrieking and bawling all over the floor, and I didn't want to do that. So I had either that or flat. I can almost like overly detach from my emotions and be like too up here because it hurts so bad, and it's going to hurt my body so badly that I have to do that. So sometimes I can sort of speak about serious things in like a sort of a feelingless way, or even worse or more framingly, I will put a melodramatic intonation on it because I'm detaching from the real emotion, because that emotion is so much that it's like overbearing. So then I'll put on a scripted emotion, and I don't mean to do it. It's just that I'm having to articulate, and I'm not ready to articulate the full emotion at its full intensity. There's all kinds of stuff that I don't fully understand, but when I look back, when I look at myself on camera and how I communicate, and I have matured so much over the past like 2 or 3 years, just since knowing and understanding and growing. I think I was so stunted from so many years of inadvertent societal abuse toward me in one way or another, and constant falling through the cracks and constant relational issues. I mean, the only person that I knew would never misjudge me is my husband, but he and I were so stressed that we could barely speak with each other sometimes because we were both in our own little bubbles, because we were so stressed dealing with being discriminated against as a couple as well as an entity. Yeah, there's so many reasons why, in order for me to engage in the other person's sort of energy field, I have to get into their energy field. And it's hard. It's very overwhelming. My neurology can vary as well. Autism has aspects of deregulation to it. So if I'm more hyper, I call it melt up. You'll notice in some of my videos I'm a bit melt uppy. I don't have these definitive swings that are major. I can have meltdowns if I'm really pushed, and I can get melt uppy, which is usually totally harmless unless it gets to be too much, and then I can get into like overload. When I do that, I'm a bit more expressive, and I'm like, oh yeah, and especially if I'm engaged in a special interest. At that point, I might be more trying to come outside of this, my flat effect, but then I'm using, I'm imitating the only facial expressions that I can see. I can only see facial expressions in, I jokingly call it like a Guess Who game. Neighbor Ed, Teacher Grace. It's like, I only see it on a childlike level. It's rudimentary to me, so I'm like, oh yeah, so I make those same facial expressions, and when I'm talking about a subject or something, and I don't know, it's imbecilic really to say that it's lying, but I guess to the small mind it would look like some sort of dramatic act. To a deeper mind it might look like quirky eccentricity. And to an even deeper and most educated mind, it would look like autism. So it's about a lack of awareness. It's about ignorance. But I've paid for it. I've taken the brunt of it. There are so many things that I would articulate to you right now if I fully understood, but my demeanor, my expressions, my execution, this is what happens with autistic females. Our voices, our effort to try and execute to the best of our ability, and the way that we present in this subtle manner, people don't know what to make of us. There is no awareness or precedent, and we get the brunt of what the hell is going on with her, and the attributing it to our personality. And that's why we try even harder, and we end up with horribly low self-esteem. That's how we end up very depressed, addicted, often developing eating disorder and neuroses, and this hole inside of ourselves where we are so ashamed. Like Tony Atwood said, she has to hide the real her because she perceives it as defective, and she has to be perfect in any way she can to make up for that. It's not a fair standard to set. Girls need support, and we need to be diagnosed younger and identified, respected, treated with compassion. Not treated like I said in another video, this isn't Salem. Whenever we open our mouths to speak and behave, and we look like this on the outside, we don't look autistic or whatever, and we seem like we can perform because for so long we've held ourselves to these standards, and we've honed these certain savant skills at presentation, superficial presentation. Our disabilities, our challenges get overlooked and masked, even to us. And it's a recipe for total bottom out in your self-esteem and utter pain in the depths of the soul. And we don't deserve that. We're so sensitive that we take it all in. We're not liars, we're not witches, we're not sociopaths. We're autistic, and we need to be treated with respect, with love, not with skepticism and pathology applying and all this other stuff. Society needs to understand. And maybe one day if that happens, what happened to me won't happen to another little girl. What happened to me and what happened to so many of us won't happen to others out there. And if we can prevent it, we can share our stories. There's an opportunity to do that. I have a blog called Sabu, sharing stories all between us. You can share your story, just mentioning it, because yeah, we need to speak out. I know I'm not lying. I know I'm not a pathology. I have a neurological difference, and it's changeable. Sometimes it's more profound, sometimes it's a little less profound. I'm changeable in a way that people don't understand. I'm affected by my issues in ways that people don't understand. So then they say that I'm not real, and that I'm not affected just because I'm affected differently and I present that differently. Well, that's just not fair. And it is to do with a lot of the fact that I'm an autistic person, female in particular. And although this applies to men too, a lot of men can, I'm sure, relate with this. So, society, you need to educate yourself. When I come out with my biography, you will see just how much of a survivor I am. I'm warning you, you might even find that hard to believe. But I don't need to worry because I have witnesses. I have lots of proof that what I went through over the years happened. And some of it was pretty crazy, but I'm still here, speaking out now. And I have so much ahead of me. I'm a mother. I don't have to repeat the same things with my children. They know how much I love them, and that even if mommy is having a bad day or whatever, it's mommy, it's not them. That's the most important thing you got to tell a child. Because my kids both have autism, I make sure that although they do have to take responsibility and own up when they're crossing boundaries, I have to explain to them why, how, why, and what to do better. What's the better way? I don't attach it to them. I don't make it about them, and I don't pathologize them. Make sure to let them know that I don't think they're bad kids. There was a time, and I'm just even starting to come out of it now. I'm finally, believe it or not, only in the most recent times have I actually really said to myself, hey, I'm not a bad person. For so long, all those M's made me feel like I was inherently a bad person. And I refuse to let any more of those M's stemmed from imbecilic ignorance, stemmed from lack of education, stemmed from lack of ability to see something objectively. That's other people's view. That's other people's judgment of me. I know who I am. I know I'm a loving person. I'm a good person. I'm a person with that has a strong sense of purpose. I'm altruistic. I'm humanistic. I'm humanitarian. I have my indulgences that I like. I like to dress up. I like to hobby model. But that's just something I do for fun, and that doesn't make me a bad person, and I don't have to categorize myself as this, selfish, stoic, bad person, bitch, just because people put me in that category in the past. I'm so much more than that. There's so much more in here. And if you just get yourself educated about autism and get to know a woman like me, you might actually realize that she's human.